of patients and elderlies at home is a huge open question. We call it the dark space of healthcare because we don't know what's going on. The clinicians tell me everything clinically important happens in between visits, doctor's visits. So with this kind of technology, the ambient intelligence technology, but fundamentally respects privacy, we'll be able to have a pair of guardian angel eyes to watch in a positive way to take care of our patients and elderly. So it's not just hospital. I really hope this can go to homes.
I think that would be amazing. What I really like in the whole story you're sharing here, Pepe, is you really want care of your mom, and you're doing that. In the process, you're trying to build something that can benefit so many other people across the world who might encounter similar situations. And this, of course, then reminds me of your other big current initiative, which is the Stanford Human-Centered AI Institute, which is really focused on how AI is becoming real, not just a research thing anymore, and not just in medicine, but in so many places. AI is becoming very effective at helping solve problems, but sometimes also cause problems, obviously. And so I'm really curious, how would you describe what Stanford HAI Institute is about, and how did you even decide to do it?
Thank you, Peter, for asking that. When I'm not doing research, which I'm very excited about, I'm working at Stanford HAI. So Stanford HAI is really a recognition, and I believe a lot of institutions and centers in the world are recognizing that, is that AI is not only here to stay, AI is here to transform our lives and our industry and our business. There's no turning back. This technology is so horizontal and so powerful that some people call it the driving force of fourth industrial revolution or the digital revolution, whatever you call it. It is so impactful for human lives. I had a front seat view of that at Google when I did my sabbatical in 2017 and 2018 as the chief scientist of Google Cloud, working with enterprise businesses. And there we see every vertical business, whether you're talking about agriculture, healthcare, financial institute, whatever you name it, is being deeply impacted by data, machine learning, AI. So that coming back, finishing my sabbatical, coming back to Stanford, that realization and that experience was so profoundly impactful to me that I started talking to my colleagues and the leadership of Stanford and really posing it as a question: what is higher education and academia's historical role in this age? What is our role in impacting humanity's future? We've always prided ourselves in educating tomorrow's leaders and workforce, but also becoming beacons of light in guiding thoughts and scholarship towards a future we want. So what is Stanford's role? And it was really obvious to us that Stanford being, sorry for all my Stanford pride, Peter, at least you come from Stanford. Stanford being one of the major centers of technology and AI field, we really have, we feel, an outsized responsibility and opportunity to lead that thought leadership practice. So HAI was really founded on that mission to better human conditions through advanced AI research, education, and policy. One of the most important recognition, actually, in the past few years, I don't know if you feel the same, is really the need to work with policy world. You know, technology is impacting human lives, and you said that in both positive and negative ways, right? Whether it's fairness, privacy, state surveillance, all these can be, and also, of course, future of work can be severely negative to citizens and community. In the meantime, healthcare, transportation, you know, we're also making lives better. So it's really important to have this bilateral conversation between the technology world and the policy world, and we're lacking that. Maybe it's California is just very far from DC, but we should bridge that gap. So HAI has this dual mission, both in terms of technological and interdisciplinary research innovation, but also the policy engagement, policy research, policy education, so that the two important worlds of technology and policy making can be bridged and create a forum for that. So that is what HAI's overall mission and our job is about.
That's so intriguing as you'd explain that, Feifei. Now, when I think about bringing in policy, first, when I think about bringing policy into AI and research in general, I think it's what you said is on one hand easy to see, and I agree, it's very important that whenever we make decisions that affect more than just ourselves, build systems that affect more than just ourselves, well, we're a society, we're part of society, and we want to, as a society, together decide how that's going to play out. The flip side of that, some people might say, and it's definitely at times on my mind, is that once policy and regulation get involved, it might slow down the progression. If there's too much policy and regulation in one place, then a place that has less can make faster progress and get further. And I'm curious about your thoughts on that, because it seems like it could also go that way at some point, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I think this is why it's so complex. I think anything taken to the extreme is unlikely going to be optimal, right? So guardrails and regulatory measures and owning will, without boosting the ecosystem, will probably have a negative impact to innovation. I want to mention two things. One is that I emphasize on the word America's ecosystem. If you look at America in the past more than half a century, it's just that both of us are immigrants. We don't see any other parts of the world that has this incredible innovative ecosystem that is at the interplay between industry, academia, and federally funded resources. And this has shifted to the negative for academia to a large extent since the AI industrialization, that the massive amount of resources from computing to data to talents are shifted to the industry. It has some positivity for sure, but the balance is tipped so much that at least those of us in academia, we worry about the brain drain, we worry about the next future generation, and we also worry about blue sky research that is so important. Everything we know from convolutional neural network to ImageNet still has some roots in academia, even though, of course, Bell Labs also had a big role to play. So this is why HAI spent a bulk of 2020 helping to legislate an important bill called the National Research Cloud Task Force Bill that was passed January 1st this year. And now Biden administration had established a task force answer to Congress, what we call National Research Resource Task Force, focusing on how we can reboot or reboost America's ecosystem in AI innovation, AI-related innovation. So from that point of view, policy is not just about regulatory. Policy is also about incentive and resource allocation. And HAI truly believes in that. In fact, we led that whole legislation effort together with a lot of universities and companies. I also do believe technologists and technology world need to take a deep look at what regulatory measures mean. I happen to be the one who believes some slowing down is globally important. For example, in the beginning of cars, seatbelt was very controversial. Putting on seatbelt, requiring seatbelt was a slowing down. It's slowing down of driving, but it was important for saving lives, and we need that kind of slowing down. And the industry I work most closely is healthcare. It's heavily regulated, to the extent sometimes I feel frustrated. But if you look deep into the motivation of that regulation, it's so important. The challenge to us is that how we can continue to innovate and optimize that process so that it keeps life safe and distribution of technology fair without dampening the speed of innovation. But I do think it's important that we have regulations.
Well, definitely regulations help us in many ways. I want to go back to the task force, actually, because I'm really curious about that. I haven't heard much about it yet. I've just seen a few announcements here and there, but you're at the heart of it. So I'm really curious. I saw this note, National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Task Force, and that comes out of the bill that you helped get passed about a half year ago. And I'm really curious, what are some of the hopes you have that this task force can achieve?
When we started working on this bill, it was those data that, coming out of our study that shows that academia is so strained and deprived of resource in the AI compute era that was extremely alarming. If you look at any